Welcome to Practical Business Technology, where we keep you in the know about technology's impact on business. Today's show is sponsored by the Maricopa County Bar Association, and our host is Dave Kinsey, author and owner of Total Networks. Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Dave.
And today we're going to talk about encryption.
Ooh.
So what is the definition of encryption?
Encryption means something is hidden. So that's, people get really kind of wrapped up in what the heck encryption is. And it's a lot more complicated than that. But the whole idea is that you have something that is hidden and somebody has a way to find it. So in this case, you might think of data being encrypted with a key so that nobody else, no peeking, nobody else can see the information is private.
So is it like a password?
Yeah, it can kind of be like a password.
Is a password encryption?
A password itself is non-encryption, but a password could be used to encrypt. So the idea of encryption is that you have all your information scrambled in a way that it cannot be unscrambled without a key that you have. In this case, the password might be the key that does that encryption.
Oh, so the password's the key.
It can be.
To unlocking the puzzle.
Yes.
And why do we need this puzzle?
Because the internet's a scary, dangerous place, isn't it, though? So the idea is information is great and sharing information is great, but we need to keep some information private. And if we don't, some information, like say your bank account information and your logins to your bank, that really needs to be kept private, right? Because you don't want to have criminals say, hey, let me wire transfer money out, and all that on one extreme. Or from a business perspective, you don't want to have that happen with your business accounts or your information, your Word documents, your spreadsheets.
So your data out in the cloud is encrypted, meaning that it's all jumbled up.
It can be, and usually it is if it's with good.
And if it's encrypted, that's what happens.
Yes.
And then you need a password to unlock the encryption.
Yeah, this gets kind of complicated in some respects. So there's a lot of details if I want to be completely technically correct, but you don't need to worry about all the technical details. At a high level, the most important thing you want to think about is, you want to make sure your business is safe and secure and that your information is safe and secure. And so one of the important ways that is done is encryption. But encryption itself really just means hidden. And you need to have a way to decrypt or unhide this information when you need to access it. So the bad guys can't unhide this information, get at it. But you can. That's the ideal. That's what our goal is.
Okay. Are there different types of encryption?
Yeah, at a high level, especially if you're there's the concept of encryption at rest, which would mean encryption where it's stored. So say you have a laptop and you have your files on that laptop. If it's not encrypted at rest on that laptop and your laptop gets stolen, the bad guy that gets your laptop, gets to get out all your data. If it's encrypted at rest on that laptop, they can't. And so,
would they need to know your password to get the information on your laptop?
If it's encrypted, yes. So
but if it's not encrypted and you had a password, how could they get it?
There are ways that bad guys can access the hard drive directly and read information. So the idea is your storage on your laptop is actually storage anywhere is ultimately it's ones and zeros, right? It's it's all binary, and so these ones and zeros can be read from other devices and what have you. But if they're scrambled in a way where it just appears like gibberish, is the goal, but it's really not gibberish. It's not gibberish when you use the key to unhide it. So that's why it's important to say you have your laptops or any device you care about that's portable, your mobile phone, your laptop, it should be encrypted at rest so that if it's stolen, it's worthless to the criminal who stole the laptop. They can't get at your data. The other thing is encrypted in motion. And this idea is when you're connecting across the internet. So say you go to your bank website, you need to make sure that your data is encrypted in transit between you and your PC. And same thing with your emails. When you're, say you're on Office 365, it will be encrypted in transit across the internet, so that people can't listen in, basically.
Okay. So why should I care?
Good question.
You talked about your laptop being stolen. If you are subject to certain regulations like HIPAA,
Yep.
and my laptop gets stolen,
You have then legal obligations, and bad things happen. If
it wasn't encrypted.
if it's not encrypted. Encryption is actually considered a safe harbor situation, so that you don't have to do things like report it lost. Bad things can happen when basically data breaches occur. It depends on how large the data breach. If a really large data breach, you may end up on what's called the wall of shame. There's literally a wall of shame out there on the internet for HIPAA, which is healthcare information data breaches. But data breaches of any kind are bad. So the idea is, if you have any information stored on a laptop, modern laptops have the ability to be encrypted, but they're not going to be encrypted by default. So whereas mobile phones more and more are encrypted by default if you have a PIN on it, regardless, you'd want to make sure you have a checklist where you're making sure that your laptops and your mobile phones in particular are encrypted. Those are very easily lost or stolen, right? So those things should be encrypted.
How do I know if my device is encrypted?
Well, you can work with your IT, but one thing you can, like say if you have a Windows laptop, if you go into your Explorer and you go to My Computer and you look at your C drive, you'll see a little lock. You'll see a little lock on it. Assuming you're using BitLocker encryption, which most people are, there's a lock. There are ways to tell, but if you're using that,
or if you're not sure, you can ask.
If you're not sure, you can check with your IT on your phone. If you click on secure settings and whatnot, if you drill down, say if you say I have an Android phone. If I go into settings on there, and it has a good search function, if I search for encryption, it should have a setting to tell me if it's encrypted or not.
Okay.
So, but your IT, one of the jobs of any good IT provider is to make sure that the encryption is happening, that you don't need to worry about it. You run your business, they make sure on their checklists, everything's encrypted, so you don't have a problem if something is lost or stolen.
And when you're doing the in transit,
Mm-hmm.
so that's, I assume you mean when I'm filling out a form, for example, online.
Yes.
Or filling out any information on the internet, how do I know that information I'm typing in on that form is being sent securely?
Sure. Ultimately, you will that's where you have that lock generally in your browser where you can see that something is encrypted or not. It'll have the web browser the address should say HTTPS as opposed to HTTP. The S stands for secure. You should see a lock on your browser somewhere, and you can actually click on the lock and it'll show you the encryption key and all that. That is a way to make sure that things are actually encrypted.
Okay. So how does encryption tie in with ransomware?
Excellent question.
Because I've heard about people get ransomware and all their files are encrypted and
Yeah.
you got to pay the ransom.
That's bad encryption, right? Encryption's supposed to be good, but because it's supposed to keep everything insecure, which is one of the biggest fallacies. People think, stuff is encrypted and safe, right? Encryption means safe. No, encryption means hidden. That's all it means. Something is hidden, and then hopefully you have a key to unhide it. What happens with ransomware is your data gets hidden, but you don't have the key. The bad guys have the key. So you could make an argument that your data is protected from you because they now own your data. But I don't think anyone would call it safe. So it means it's encrypted. Now, so ransomware wouldn't exist if encryption didn't happen, right? Because that's one of the things there. Encryption wouldn't happen if cryptocurrency didn't exist, which is a whole nother story.
Okay, so somehow you get hit with ransomware. Maybe you didn't have two-factor on your email account and you had a weak password and someone guessed it and got in and you clicked on a link, or somehow your files on your computer or your server all get encrypted and it's got a key. And the only way to unencrypt it is either you pay the ransom and get the key, or you restore from backup.
Yes.
And we recommend you restore from backup.
Yeah, you don't want to.
But
we don't want to negotiate with terrorists.
Explain to me why the criminals asked for you to pay with cryptocurrency instead of other means.
Well, cryptocurrency. What does that mean, right? Cryptocurrencies, if you translate that literally means hidden money, right? And that's kind of the idea is, it's money.
So it's encrypted money?
Yeah, kind of. Well, the idea is it's very hard to trace is really the basic idea is. The reason why cryptocurrency was created is to have a way to basically have I don't want to say untraceable, because things are made by human hands. I'm not going to say that there's no way to trace it, but very, very hard. In the hands of experts, it's effectively untraceable, or in the hand of somebody who's reasonably careful, cryptocurrency is more or less untraceable. And so that's why it exists. It exists basically to have untraceable transactions. It exists to basically have a monetary system outside the purview of governments and law enforcement and all that. There's a whole big history of why cryptocurrency was created. But
so what I'm gathering is that when you have your files encrypted, the important part is that whoever has the key
owns your data.
Owns the data. And so if you lose your key, like what if I have a laptop, it's encrypted, and then
you lose the key?
I lose the key.
Yeah, bad news, huh? That's been known to happen.
Hope my IT
You hope your IT
kept
has the
copy.
key. Your IT provider needs to make sure that they keep the key.
But then what? I might be stuck.
Yeah, if your IT provider has a oops and loses your key, or whatever, that's not okay. You could you that data's gone. You need to start over. Your laptop is toast.
Unless you have a backup of it.
Unless you have a backup of it. So, which is why, like, say, for my business, we have a pretty involved process. We make sure laptops are encrypted, and we have a whole separate system in process to make sure that we are keeping track of all the keys. Because, we would need those keys.
Well, and I think we also recommend that people don't store data directly on
Agreed.
their laptop.
Agreed.
But if they do, we do have solutions to back that up.
Agreed. So it's rather involved how the whole laptop thing works. There's a thing called a TPM chip that makes it easy, but it's kind of tamper evident if you get into it. There's a whole involved thing there. But ultimately, at the end of the day, laptops should be encrypted because they could have data on them, and you better have the key.
Well, and I've heard that there have been cases where the FBI has wanted Apple to decrypt a phone in a case, and Apple says they can't even do it.
Sure. Well, this is boy, what a can of worms this is here.
It's so secure.
Well, the problem is their governments have asked to basically create a backdoor. And the problem is the backdoor wouldn't just let in the government. If the bad guys find out about the backdoor, well, then they get it too. And so the idea is,
So how do you keep
it safe, but how do you let the FBI, the CIA, or whatever do what the FBI and CIA want to do, whatnot? That's a whole big ethical debate. Yeah. It's actually been going on for quite some time, that debate. That debate's really been kind of going on since the 80s.
So what are your recommendations to people about encryption?
Be smart about it. So it should be, in terms of managing IT is all about It's a lot of things, but it's a checklist. There's a lot of things. Managing security is a checklist, and, making sure you're doing all the right things, having your checks and balances. So, yeah, one thing I can say is storing your data in good cloud will check off the boxes. Like, say, Office 365, for instance. It will, your email is stored encrypted at rest. It is transmitted to you encrypted in transit. That doesn't mean it's completely safe, right? Because somebody can get your password and get in and all that. If you have super ultra sensitive information that you're afraid about people getting, you can do extra steps to encrypt it. Like, say you have a Word document that's real sensitive, or a spreadsheet that's real sensitive. You could take an extra step, not only storing it in Office 365 where it's encrypted and back, in rest and transit, but you could actually put a password on that file, which is, now it's inconvenient, right? Because you have to enter in that password to unlock it, that spreadsheet or the Word document every time you open it. But if it's something that's important, have an extra layer of security, you can do that, and you can add another layer of encryption.
And then you can have two-factor on top of that.
And two factors that's a whole other thing there. So, but yeah,
right.
We've talked about two-factor in other podcasts.
Any last thoughts?
Make sure that you have everything that should be encrypted. Make sure you have the key safe and sound.
And how do you store it safe and sound? Not written on a piece of paper,
Not written on a piece of paper. And good IT providers will have systems. They'll have electronic systems to manage that, and then they're going to have security around that to make sure that that those keys are managed and kept from prying eyes as well. So do due diligence basically to make sure that your IT people are keeping up with the times, and that they should. If they're not talking with you about encryption, that's a little bit of a red flag, because you should be at least involved in that discussion, or somebody in your firm should be involved in that discussion, and somebody should make sure they're at least asking the questions like, are my laptops encrypted? Are my phones encrypted? Are things encrypted at rest? Are they encrypted in transit? Because you don't want to end up finding out that something's not encrypted after it's been lost or after a breach happens. A little bit of work on the front end will save you a lot of pain on the back end.
Yeah, good point. It can be very costly if you have to notify a whole list of people. It can be embarrassing, and it can...
It's bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad for business in so many ways.
Lost data is very expensive.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.